But page 61, obedience of the Rechabites, or Rechabites. I looked up the pronunciation of that, and I believe it's closer to Rechabites. So, what was last week's lesson? A new covenant. It was more leaning more towards the hope and happiness side, if we remember, versus what's been the feel so far of the entire book of Jeremiah.
Doom and gloom.
Pretty much. Been kind of a lot of tragedy, doom and gloom, and that kind of thing. At least from Jeremiah's point of view, seems like. I mean, he has to tell bad news over and over and over again, and you can understand that would get tiresome. But Jeremiah, chapter 35, verses 1 through 16. The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah, saying, Go to the house of the Rechabites, speak to them, and bring them into the house of the Lord, into one of the chambers, and give them wine to drink. What do a lot of people do with verse 2? What do some people use that verse for? Aha! Jeremiah 35 verse 2.
He drank wine.
He drank wine. He told him to drink wine. Right? Then people get into problems with definitions of the word wine and, new wine, old wine, alcoholic wine, non-alcoholic wine, which is just grape juice.
And how much you gonna drink?
And how much you can drink. Well, just a little bit's okay. Mm-hmm. This is kind of off topic, but we can talk about what do people drink wine for? Or beer? What do you drink it for? To get drunk.
Drink it in excess to get.
You drink it in excess to get drunk. Yes. And one thing I heard once, and it stuck with me. When do you start getting drunk?
You started with that first one.
When you first start, I guess. So.
I had a guy I used to work with, didn't work with, but I've been knowing a long time. We grew up all together, and he told me that he drunk, and we used to play ball together a lot. And I asked him, I said, "Why you get buy beer every afternoon?" He said it's a relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he told me. He said he would drink at least 1 or 2 beers every afternoon, especially during the summertime, it was hot, because he had a job working outside. And he said, it just relaxes you.
Yeah. I'm not getting drunk. I'm just relaxing. It's, at the end of the day, it's changing your what? It's changing your state. It's doing something to you. So.
On a similar term, this morning, if anybody saw it on CBS News, they had the evolution, if you will, they didn't call it that, of marijuana. And the people that are now advocating it the most are people with health problems in the over 60 bunch. People who used to fight it and say no, and Reefer Madness, the movie, and the show.
Madness was like the 30s.
Now it's the young people. Now this is the same way. When you open the top of the bottle and the vapor comes out, and you're getting. I think there's more to this lesson from what I read. I said the Lord was testing him. If the Lord asked me to do something, folks, I'm going to do what the Lord said.
See, that I'm kind of on the bigger thing. This lesson kind of makes me go, makes me raise my eyebrows. This one is curious to me. It's a very interesting lesson this morning. So yeah, I understand. We'll get into that. What the reason why they said no, and then the reasons were given, and understand why they were told to do that. But it's at the same time, it's like who are you gonna obey?
It wasn't the Lord said. It was. I'm telling you that the Lord said in Jeremiah.
Yeah, from their point of view.
so it was secondhand. But,
Yes, from their point of view.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Sin is brought into the church. It is brought into the chambers of the church.
Yes.
It's because it's in the church that make it right.
Because the church is made up of people. Yeah, the church is made up of sinners. A lot of people. If you're on Facebook, you've seen that picture a million times. I don't go to church because I'm perfect. I go to church because I'm a sinner. So, there's a lot of people. I'm not going to go to church. Everybody thinks they're holier than thou at church. That's not the reason why you go to church. So it's off topic, but not really. But we're going to get into this. Go to the house of the Rechabites, speak to them, and bring them into the house of the Lord, into one of the chambers, and give them wine to drink. So where did he tell them to go to?
One of the chambers.
Into one of the chambers in the house of the Lord, and give them wine to drink. Who is that speaking in verse 2? God. So God told people to go get wine. That's what an argument might be. Will someone read verse 3 and 4, please? With all the hard names.
The son of Jeremiah, the son of Abazaniah, and his brothers, and all his sons, and the whole house of the Rechabites, and brought them into the house of the Lord, into the chambers of the sons of Hanun, the son of Igdaliah, a man of God, which was by the chamber of the princes, which was above the chamber of Messiah, the son of Shalom, the keeper of the door.
All right, thank you. I didn't mean to put all those names on you like that, but there's no reason to really get in specific this morning on who all those people were. Why were they named? What is the point of that, given all these people's names and listing them out into detail? It shows their importance. These people were
Illustrate position.
Yes, these were people of position. What?
As a joke, I had a fellow tell me he would never take one person of a certain religion fishing with him. And he said, why? He said, because from now on I'll take two. If you take one, he'll drink all your beer. Okay? Now, the point to that was they get all these people together and they're watching one another.
Yes.
So that's just like taking two of these people that, they watch one another and they won't do it.
That's a really good point, though. I mean, it's a joke, but it's really, or is it? That's a really good point. Two people will do stuff that three people won't, and vice versa. Three and four, a group of people will do stuff that two people never would. But what's going on here? Everybody's seeing what everybody else is doing, and it's listing all of them by their station, or not by their station, by their names, because these are important people. So they're all probably looking at each other. Do y'all see this? This is going on. Yes, okay. Verse 5, then I set before the sons of the house of the Rechabites bowls. Now, who's this speaking right here? Verse 5. Jeremiah, yes. I set before the sons of the house of the Rechabites bowls full of wine and cups, and I said to them, drink wine. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, who are the Rechabites? They were just not just, yes, but they were like a group, a sect, a clan, a family. And I said to them, drink wine. So Jeremiah told them the words of who?
God.
Yes, God, the Lord. Now, will someone read verse 6, please?
But they said, we will drink no wine. For Jonadab, the son of Rechab, our father, commanded us, saying, you shall drink no wine, you nor your sons forever.
Thank you. Now, back to what Dad was saying earlier. Who are you going to obey here? I'm kind of torn on it too, because God told Jeremiah to tell them to do something. Now, if you read the study guide, it's bringing out a bunch of stuff. This is not a trick. This is not God tempting the people. God Does God know what's in everyone's heart?
Yes.
Do I know what's in anybody else's heart?
No.
I don't even know what's going in my head half the time. So nobody knows what's in other people's hearts, but God knows what's in the hearts of others, right?
But the Lord said, give it to them. He didn't tell them, he said, give it to them.
Ha.
It's their choice whether or not
Yeah.
they choose to drink it.
We talked about
He
that
said
some
give
last
them
week.
wine to drink. What else are you going to do with it except drink it? So why put it before them if they're not going to drink it? Testing. Don't say it's testing.
We kind of talked about this last week. You know, we are free moral agents. We can do what we so choose. God gives us the choice. Towards the end of our introduction, right on page 63, about the middle of the page, it says the point in both Hebrews and Jeremiah is simple. If we will obey our human fathers, why will we not obey our fathers in heaven? This entire discussion also reminds us that God desires, but does not force our compliance. Genuine obedience is not the result of coercion. The Rechabites had the opportunity to violate Jonadab's decree. Instead, they chose to remain faithful. God desires the same dedication from those who follow him. I'm not getting political again this morning, but there's a lot of people that say, well, the government's only doing what Christians would do in certain situations. They'll take things and either twist them or try to fit them into certain molds. And they'll say, well, don't you believe in that as a... My answer is, Jesus didn't force people to do things at the tip of a Roman spear. People always had the choice.
I got befriended for Thomas and
That same thing? Jesus didn't do it at the tip of a Roman spear. Like first cousin too. Or no, second? Okay. Well, it's okay then.
Well, Colin, too. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
they weren't taking of this wine for a specific reason, son of Jodab, right? They was told before not to. You know, you just don't make up rules. People do sometimes, but back then, it was a reason why they were told not to drink.
Yes. And Jodab, that was, our book brings that out. The father that was 250 years previous. So this has been going on for 250 years. They were in the patriarchal age, right? So he said that, and they're like, okay. And the whole family's doing it
Holding on.
for 250 years. And as we will see later on, nobody, not a single person has slipped in 250 years. Yes, sir.
I guess I'm getting in here kind of late, but we're talking about some wine was set before someone, and but they had been told not to drink it, right? And then the question was, well, why was it set before them if they were not supposed to drink it? When Peter, after his conversion from Judaism to Christianity, you remember before he was sent to go to Cornelius, a Gentile, to deliver the gospel, God brought from heaven all the before unclean food and said, now this time he didn't just set it before him, he said, eat.
Mm-hmm.
Peter was like, no, I'm not going to touch that. But I guess I'm just seeing a difference there. One time the wine was set before them, but they weren't commanded to drink. But then, as in the case of Peter, unclean food was set before him, but he was told to eat, because now then had been made clean.
Yeah. Others?
But he told him, I have not put anything that's unclean. He was showing him that the food was not unclean. He hadn't put anything before him that was unclean. You were allowed to eat it.
Right.
We're kind of on time. Will someone read verses? Yes. 7, please. Just 7.
You shall not build a house so seed planted in them, nor have any meat. In all your days you shall dwell in tents, and you may live many days in the land where you are sojourners.
Okay, thank you. That's the Rechabites. That's what the father said. Told them, don't drink wine And don't do what else?
Don't be a house.
Don't build a house. We were just talking about having gardens. Where's everybody have your garden? Y'all have, I mean, we were literally just talking about that before we just started the study.
If we go to an extreme, we can say, nor do we have a vineyard, field, or seed. We're talking about a vineyard and grape seed and a field to raise the grapes, which you get. But now I can't see the comparison of a house, a home. You live in a tent. Now that, and I can see they'd say, oh, you can't do that. But now, there is a reason, apparently, he was told to not live in a house.
Yeah.
Be nomadic.
They were to be nomads. So what's,
Right.
Be free and
yeah,
With
what's,
that tent, they could pick it up and move it.
able to move.
yes. What is that? Like
Will-
a tent or a yurt. You can, they can be, some of those things are nice.
They might
But-
not have been back then.
They may not have been back then, but I mean, the point is, it's, you take it down and you move. They couldn't, did they even own land then?
Well, that's the way the
No.
Indians was. They
Yeah.
traveled. Whenever they left, you didn't ever know they were there, I mean, as far as destroying.
So they didn't have a vineyard, they didn't till the soil, they didn't even have seeds to put in the ground to grow. So they were obviously not somewhere long enough to raise crops. Right? They went place to place. They were nomadic. And they've been doing this for 250 years at least. Verse 8. Thus we have obeyed the voice of Jonadab, the son of Rechab, our father, in all that he charged us. What does in all that he charged us mean?
All the commands he told you to do.
On everything. Well, maybe we just won't have grape seeds and a vineyard stuff, but we'll have this kind of stuff. They hadn't messed up ever at all. Our father, all that he charged us to drink no wine all our days, we, our wives, our sons, our daughters, nor to build ourselves houses to dwell in, nor do we have vineyard, field, or seed. So, not them, not their wives, sons, daughters. We've been having a 5-year-old that, we can't get to do anything. So, they've managed to keep, their family and their families' families and all their children on this path all this time.
They killed you if you did that.
It's probably true.
Well, that's true, dog. But when you got everybody together on one accord, it's much easier to keep people in line than you get thieves from everywhere.
I'm sure it kept them either close and together, or what? Not together at all. So, you're right. That's a good term. They were in one accord. That's for sure. Nor to build ourselves houses to dwell in, nor do we have vineyard, field, or seed. So they're just saying this over again. None of those things. Will someone read verse 10 and 11, please?
But we have dwelled in tents and have obeyed and done according to all that Jonadab, our father, commanded us. But it came to pass when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came up into the land, that we said, come on, let us go to Jerusalem for the fear of the armies of the Chaldeans and for fear of the armies of the Syrians. So we dwelt at Jerusalem.
Okay. So they were nomads in tents, but who showed up?
Nebuchadnezzar,
The king of what country again?
Babylon.
Haven't we been talking about that? He came and showed up with his armies, and were they nice?
No.
No. So they had good sense, and they did what? They moved.
To the city for protection.
And my first thought was, they're in the city. They probably moved into a house. How crazy is it? I mean, I'm sure they had houses and some people had other tents, but they moved imagine moving into New York City with a tent and living there and moving from one block to the next and just moving around. There are people that do that.
Considered homeless.
So, what do people think about them, maybe? These folks are crazy. They live in tents because their patriarch, their father, 250 years ago said that? That was then. This is now. We hear that kind of stuff now. That was then. The Bible was written 2,000 years ago. So.
I had a person told me that the other day. Well, how you know that stuff right in there? You know, that main road there.
Yeah.
You know, you had to go through the whole detail. We know, tell them about those men were inspired by God.
Correct.
But that was what she said.
Mm-hmm.
How you know that man write anything to suit him or whatever?
You take it on faith or you don't. And then you have, in effect, to back up faith. So, for fear of the army of the Syrians, so we dwell in Jerusalem. So they're in Jerusalem, it's a big city, I'm sure. Probably being looked at like they're crazy. Why aren't you living in a house? Why don't you have a proper job? Why don't you drink wine? We're going out, Friday night. No, we're not doing any of that stuff. Will someone read verses 12 and 13, please?
Then came the word of the Lord unto Jeremiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Go and tell the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, will ye not receive instruction to hearken to my words, saith the Lord.
Thank you. So, God talked to Jeremiah and told him, now we're switching gears, we're talking about other people, right? In verse 13, we're talking about somebody else. We're not talking about the Rechabites here. 13. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of who? Go and tell men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, will you not receive instruction to obey my words? 14. The words of Jonadab, the son of Rechab, which he commanded his sons not to drink wine, are performed, for to this day they drink none, and obey their father's commandment. But although I have spoken to you, rising early and speaking, you did not obey me. Kind of reminds me of like if you had two kids, and one was good and the other one was bad. And you're talking to the bad one, or you talk to the good one, you ask them something and they give you a reason why they did or didn't do something like you told them. And you ask them, why are you doing this? But because you said it. And you go, oh. Then you go to the bad one and say, why can't you be like them? That's kind of what happens here. So God said to go to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and tell them what? If they're being good, why can't y'all be good? Why can't y'all do what you're supposed to do?
Use the contrast thing.
Yes.
He's their father and they won't obey him, and they continue to disobey him, and they didn't leave nothing out. They continue in it.
Mm-hmm. And once again, we were in a patriarchal age. So this is a command of the Rechabites' father. Who's the father of Israel? Who's the God of Israel? God. So they're not following their father, who is just so happens to be who? God. At the end of 14, but although I have spoken to you, rising early and speaking. What significance is there in the rising early and speaking part of that verse? I'll look something up. You know how many times early or rising early or being early in the morning is mentioned or referenced in the Old Testament? I think it's 200 times. When, biblically speaking, when do bad things happen? At night, dark. When should you work?
Daily life.
Because what's coming when no man can work? Nighttime. Well, if our study guide, I read some stuff about this where goodness and good things from the Lord come early in the morning. Early. And as somebody who works at night and is a night owl, that made me cringe a little bit, raise my eyebrow. Maybe I need to get up early in the morning. If you're intent on doing something, do you sleep in?
Most times not.
Most times not. Most of the times if you're excited about something, you're going to wake up when? Early. You ever been so excited on Christmas Day when you're 6 years old that you wake your parents up and they're like, go back to bed. The sun's not even up. Why? It's important to you, right? Early in the morning. So that's the significance of rising early. Rising early and speaking, you did not obey me. Will someone read verse 15, please?
I have also sent to you all my servants, the prophets, rising up early and sending them, saying, turn now everyone from his evil way, amend your doings, and do not go after other gods to serve them. Then you will dwell in the land which I have given you and your fathers. But you have not inclined your ear, nor obeyed me.
Thank you. So, is this the first time? No. It's like a parent saying, I've told you over and over again. Reminds me of Mom used to whip me. This is for what you did last week. And as I'm getting the whipping, I'm like, I got a whipping 3 days ago. How are you going to whip me for something I did last week and whip me again? There was some overlap in my punishment. And I could tell you this is the case because she would whip me like, this is what you did. And then like, you're going to do this next week. And I'm like, she's whipping me for things I'm going to do. It's like, how does that work? But I remember. The funny part about that is it's true. But the funny part of it also is she was right. Because I did it back then, and if I'm really sorry for what I did back then, would I be doing it right then? Corbin's favorite thing to do is to do some evilness right now, and then be like, oh, sorry. So fast, sorry, and come give you a hug. And the first time we're like, oh, he's sorry. And then you hear blam, blam, 2 minutes later, it's like he's doing the same thing again. Was he sorry? Maybe he needed a whipping the first time for what he did.
Colin, on that, it made me thought about my dad and when I was being raised up. He was not wanting to whoop you a whole lot, but when he got you, he got you. And he would tell you, you thought I didn't remember when you did this and did that. And when he got you all of it.
Yeah, you thought I wouldn't remember. This is for this one and that one. And Dad's got a story about, I won't embarrass that. Well, yeah, well. You said in high school you got one like that, wasn't it? Or junior high? You got a paddling by principal like 2 weeks later?
4 or 5 weeks.
4 or 5 weeks after he did something.
Because I had a broken arm and leg from a motorcycle wreck, and he just kept putting it off, and then he played like he forgot it.
Mm-hmm. And then he was going to have to paddle somebody else, and Dad was walking by. He said, "Oh," he grabbed him and pulled him over. You thought I forgot?
Convenient.
It was all because I asked what page to somebody next to me. I was talking.
But it made the light bulb go off in his head. He remembered.
Mothers say words like that. When you do something, say you're sorry, then do it again. You said you're sorry the second time. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
You will be.
You will be.
And guaranteed, you will be.
Yeah. Verse 15 is a whole lot of that going on. The bypass wasn't there years ago, but I remember we'd be at Mama and Papa's house on Highway 50. So the bypass wasn't there, I don't think, and then another road wasn't there. So there was a long way to go from that, even though now you can get there in literally like 5 minutes. But back then it was 15 minutes. It took a long time. That was sometimes it was just like we'd be home. And other times that was the longest 15 minutes ever. Because here's what would happen. Mom we'd get ready to, Kenny and I'd be over at my grandparents' house. Mom come to pick us up, or whether she'd be there the whole day, whatever. And she'd get ready to go. That took about an hour and a half to leave. So she'd like, sit down, we're getting ready to go. We'd sit down. In an hour and a half, it may have been 30 minutes, it may have been an hour and a half, or it may have been 2 hours. In that time, we would get antsy, and we'd finally do something to get deserving of a whipping. When we get home, we're going to whip you. That's usually when we could finally get in the car. When we were bad enough to, we'd get in the car. And so many of those rides, the whole time, is she going to remember? Is she going to remember? Is she going to remember? She remembered every time, just sometimes she didn't do it. Do these people know the punishment is there? Do they believe that God is going to do what he says? That's my quandary with these people. Why do y'all keep doing this? But everybody does that to a degree, right? Even us now, we're like, I can let this slip today. The point is, no, it is. It's in us, you know. The things I know I'm supposed to do, I don't do, and the things that I know I'm not supposed to do, I do. Why do I do that? The point was, the Rechabites never slipped on those commandments. They never did. They made a point to not. Yes, sir.
I think one thing that they should know is God is consistent. And if you don't do what he says, he's not like a parent. You know, a parent will tell their child, oh, you're going to get a whooping if you do that again. Well, some parents, you just call it their bluff, and the kid says, well, okay. And they do it. It's just like, well, if you do it again, God ain't like that.
Yeah, he's not at all.
He's just like, well, do it again and see what happens. And they do it again, and it's like, hey, guess what? You got to go over here now.
I threatened some sort of discipline to Corbin the other day. And like the second I said it, I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that. Because the discipline wasn't, in my mind, wasn't too far on him. It was just like, now I'm going to have to back up what I just said was going to happen to him. And I had to. And I felt bad because he was like, and he's going to do it again. And he did it. And I had to back it up. And the whole time I saw it in his eyes. He was like, oh, is he serious this time? I had to be serious that time. Because what would happen if I didn't?
They'll get confused.
Yeah, I'm confusing my child.
Yeah, he ain't serious.
Daddy doesn't mean it. Then it becomes what? Then it all... And then I made something else. I threatened no TV for a week or something. And Heather looked at me. She's like... I heard her...
Yourself. You don't normally discipline your children. You don't give them the discipline that punishes you. It's the discipline that punishes the child.
And
when you give them no TV for a week, you suffer because then you got to do something.
Yeah.
I suffer.
I said that. No TV for a week. And I heard her neck. And they're like, if you... And I said, and I closed my eyes. I went, I know. Maybe I'm starting to figure out this hurts me more than it hurts you. I'm still going to do my best not to say it out loud.
You need to make a list of punishments, put it on a little piece of paper, put it in a bowl, and say, pick from this what your punishment will be, and pick the punishments that hurt him, not you.
Yeah.
Somebody's had experience.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, literally, you're picking your own switch.
Yeah.
These are your punishments. Let him help you write it and put it in the bowl.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying, I don't enjoy dispensing punishment, and it does hurt my feelings that I have to do these things to him.
Punishment's love to a child.
Yeah.
It really is.
And
you
I'm
care enough to want to keep them safe.
Yes. And I'm not by any means right here speaking for God, but is it probably hurting God that these people aren't obeying him?
Yes.
Yes.
It's hard.
Well, if we think about it, everything that they did back then was warranting Jesus having to go to the cross in the future. So every little thing was compiling on God. I mean, if you knew that you were going to have to send your son to the cross later on, if these people didn't do what they were supposed to do, and every time they messed up, and you were giving them specific direction, just do what I say, and everything's going to be okay. And they keep messing up and keep messing That's not blatantly,
Yeah.
not, just by accident. This is blatant, rebellion.
That's a terrible realization, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also the fact that God's omniscient, omnipresent, He knows everything and He's everywhere all the time. He already knows all this. Last verse, surely the sons of Jonadab, the sons of Rechab, have performed the commandment of their father which he commanded them, but this people has not obeyed me.